Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to Daily Code Buffer. In this video, we are going to see about MongoDB and how to use MongoDB in your Spring Boot application. So first, let's see why we need to use MongoDB and what are the advantages. So what is MongoDB? So MongoDB is a NoSQL database which allows us to store the data in the NoSQL format, means in the document format. So it's a non-structured data format that we can store in the MongoDB, and it's highly scalable as well. So if we take the relational database, in the relational database there is a complete structure, and within that structure we have to store our data. But in NoSQL, in MongoDB, there is no structure defined. We can store the unstructured data. We can store the data in a document format, in a JSON format very easily. And as it's highly scalable, we can scale those applications very efficiently as well, and we can serve millions of users. So generally NoSQL databases are used when you have to store the non-structural data, means you have to store in the document format. So if you see this JSON format, this is how the data would be stored directly in your MongoDB. But in the relational databases, if when you are using Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, you cannot store the data that way. So that's the advantages for it, and we will see how we can store all those data using the Spring Boot application. We are going to see a complete CRUD application, and we are also going to see some of the aggregations that we can use using the MongoDB. So let's quickly create our Spring Boot application and let's implement the MongoDB. So first let me go to the new project. You can create the project using the IntelliJ IDEA as well, and you can also create using the Spring Initializer. I'll add the Spring Initializer's link in the description below. So you just go there and click on the new project, and here we can add the project name. So I'll just define Spring Boot MongoDB. Okay, and I'll select the location here, and my language is Java. The project type is May1. The group ID I'll select as Daily Code Buffer. The artifact as Spring Boot MongoDB. Package name as Spring Boot MongoDB. JDK is 11 and Java I'll be using 11. And my packaging would be of jar type. So click on next. Here I need to add the Spring Web. Then I'll add the Lombok. Then here I'll add the Spring Boot MongoDB dependency, and then I'll click on create to create our project. So here you can see that your project is created, but before that let's install the MongoDB as well. So to install the MongoDB, make sure that you have Docker installed in your machine, because that's the easiest way to install MongoDB in your local system. But if you want to use the cloud, you can go ahead and use the MongoDB cloud, that is the Mongo Atlas. There you will be able to easily create the account, and you will get the credentials from there, and you will be also able to create the database. So whichever is preferable for you, you can go ahead and use that. Here I'll show you how to install in the local machine. So once the Docker is installed in the machine, make sure that Docker desktop is installed. Either you are using Mac, Windows or Linux, wherever you are using, just install Docker and run this particular command. So here you can see that this command is fairly simple, where we are just running the docker run command, and we are giving the name of the container. Here you can give the name of the container. I'll give MongoDB. Okay, and then here you can see that we are passing some of the environment variables, that is the Mongo initdb root username and the password. So whatever the username and password you want to give, you can give the credentials over here. And you can see we are also passing the port information. So my MongoDB in my local would be running in port number 27017, and Mongo is the image name that I want to download. So once you run this command, MongoDB will be installed in your machine. You can see this way. Once you run this command, you can directly go here and see Docker images. So let me just start the Docker first. Okay, I'll start my Docker. So your Docker is not started, make sure that Docker is started and it's installed perfectly fine. Then you will be able to run the command. So here you can see that I have already installed MongoDB. That's why I am getting this particular MongoDB as an image here. I can just start from here directly. Okay, you can see that it started, and here I can see the Mongo images. So if I run Docker images, you can see that I am getting the Mongo as the image here. And if I do Docker PS, and you can see that my MongoDB is running here, and it's running on port 27017. Okay, so my MongoDB is installed and it's running completely fine. So if you want a GUI for that, what you can do is you can go to your browser and you can search for Studio 3D. Go to Studio 3D and you can download the Studio 3D. This is the GUI for your MongoDB. Okay, you can go ahead and download for your particular operating system. I have already downloaded it. So what I'll do, I will just start the Studio 3D. So just start Studio 3D here. So here you can see that it is asking to connect. But if you have not connected your system, what you can do is you can go to the new connection here, and here you can give the URL. I will add the URL as well in the description below, so you can directly add it. But what you can do, you can see that I will just show you here. So what I have added is I have added the server as 127.0.0.1, that is your local host. And then I have given the port information as well, that is 27017. And in the authentication, I have given the basic authentication. You have to select the basic authentication and give your username and password, whatever you have added while creating the MongoDB image. So give that username and password, and then in the authentication DB, give as admin. Once you do that, you can save the connection and you can connect from here. So you can see that I have connected here, and you can see I'm able to connect to my MongoDB. So that's the only thing you have to do. Now we will go to our Spring Boot application, and we will go to our src main resources and application.properties. Here we will add the configuration so that our Spring Boot application can connect to our MongoDB. So here you can see that it's very simple. We just added Spring Data MongoDB authentication database, that is admin. We also saw in the Studio 3D that it was admin, and I have added username and password, that is admin and password. The database name, I will be creating demo as a database. You can give any database name. The port number we have to give, like which particular port number we want to connect, and the host information where we want to connect. As we are connecting in our local host, you can give local host, or you can give the IP, that is 127.0.0.1. Whichever you prefer, that is fine. So we have just given this configuration details here. Now what we will do is we will start our applications. Now let's talk about internet security. With more than 5200 servers, amazing speed and one-click connect, NordVPN gives you the best features and security. As a techie, we know how much important it is to secure our data and identity. With NordVPN's diskless servers and end-to-end encryption, everything is secure, which routes via their servers. So no one will know your IP addresses. And if you want, you can route through 2 VPN servers to double down on production. And also it enables all the content on Netflix or Amazon Prime. You can just change the server and the content or your favorite shows available on that location will be available. I use NordVPN on all my devices. So if you are interested, go to this link or use the coupon code DCB to get a 2-year plan plus a bonus gift with a huge discount. Now back to the video. So now let's first create the packages and then we will build our application. So let me just go here in the Java. Let me create the packages. I'll create the collection package where we will store all the collections that will interact with our MongoDB. So this will be inside this collection. And after the collection, I will create one controller. Then I'll create a service. Then I'll create the repository. Okay, so these are the things that we are going to build. So now let's first create the collection. So we are going to work with a person entity. So we'll be creating a person, and the person will be having few of the properties like name, person ID, name, and the address information and all those things, hobbies and everything. So let's first go ahead and create the person. So I'll just create a Java class and I'll create a person entity here. Okay, so a simple class is created. Now let's add the properties. So what I'll do, I will add properties private string person ID, private string, first name, private string last name, private integer age, private list of string as hobbies. Okay, and what I can do, I can add one more list as an address. Person may have multiple addresses. Okay, so I'll just add private list of address class and addresses. So what I'll do, this is the address class. So let me go ahead and create one address collection. So I'll just create address collection here, and in the address I will just define private string address 1, private string address 2, private string city. Okay, so these are the 3 fields that I'm adding in my address. Now what I need a getter setters and constructors and everything. So what I'll do, I'll use Lombok to create all the boilerplate code using the @data annotation, and I'll also use the @builder annotation to have the builder pattern implemented. Okay, now I'll go to the person class. Here as well, I'll do the same thing. I'll use the data annotation to create all the boilerplate code, and also I'll use the builder pattern from the Lombok itself. Now what I'll do, I need to make sure that this particular person entity that I created is an entity or is a document representation for our MongoDB. So for that, I need to use the @document annotation, and this @document annotation is from the org spring framework.data.mongodb. Okay. And here within this, I need to define the collection name. So I'll define collection name equals to person. So this is a person defined here. Then what I'll do, I'll just do JSON include, and I will just add includes dot non-empty. Sorry, I will just add non-null, better than non-empty. Okay. So what are the fields are non-null, that will be only stored in our MongoDB. So other fields won't be included. And other than that, I need to add my primary key. Okay. So this will be the considered as the ID, a unique ID for my collection, that will be my person ID. So here you can see that this is a simple entity or a collection that we have created that will interact with our MongoDB. Okay. Now what we will do is we will create a repository that will interact with our MongoDB for all the CRUD operations, whatever operations we want to do for our MongoDB using our Spring Boot. The Mongo repository will come into picture. So let me go ahead and create the repository. So I'll just create a class that says person repository, and this will be the interface. Okay, and this will extends Mongo repository. Okay, whenever we were working with the MySQL, that is relational database, we were using the JPA repository, but within the Mongo, we will be using the Mongo repository. And here we will also define what is the type of the repository or what is the type of the entity. The type is person, and what is the ID type, that is of type string. Okay, and I will annotate this as repository. You can see that it's very simple. We just created the person repository that extends the Mongo repository, and there we have given the type, like this particular Mongo repository is of type person and the ID is of type string. Now similarly, let me just go ahead and create the services. So we'll go ahead and create the services. Here I'll just define the person service, that is the interface, and we'll go ahead and define the person service IMPL, that is the implementation for the person service. So this person service IMPL will implements person service, and this will annotate with service. So this is our service layer. And now what we will do, we will create a controller. So let me go ahead and create a controller in the controller package, and here we'll define this is a person controller. Okay, and here I'll define @REST controller, and I'll define request mapping /person. So here you can see that we just created all the controller layer, repository layer, service layer, and our collections. Now let's create the REST API that will allow us to store a person in our MongoDB database. So here in the controller layer, we need a object of a service. So let's create the object and auto wire it. So I'll just define private person service and the reference to it, and I will just do @auto wire. So we will get the object of person service. Now let's create the method. So I'll just define public string save @request body. I'll just pass in a person as the entire object. Okay, so this is my entire object that I'm going to pass from the REST API, and this will be my post mapping. Okay, we'll be doing the post request here. And what here I'll do, I will just do return person service dot save, and here I will just pass on person object. Now this particular method is still not available, so what we have to do is we have to go ahead and create a method in our person service. So the method is created. Now I have to implement this method as well. So I'll go here, I'll click on this one implementation, and in this person service IMPL, I will implement this method. Simple, right? So within this person service IMPL, I will need the object of the repository, because from the service layer, from my business layer, I need to connect to my database layer, that is my MongoDB database. So for that, I have created a repository, and Using that, I will just save the database. So here I will just define person repository and I will auto wire it. Simple, right? And here what I'll do, I will just define person repository dot save. I'll pass the entire person dot get person ID and the method is completed. So here you can see that it's completely similar to what you were doing in your JPA repository. Very simple. Whatever the code you were doing there, the same code we did, but the implementation is different. Here we are using the Mongo repository and we just provided the configuration for our MongoDB. Rest everything is same. So here you can see that how easy it is to work with MongoDB using the Spring Boot application. Now what we can do is we can test our application, but before that, let's go ahead and implement the API documentation. So with the API documentation, we can get all the documentation very easily and we can test our application easily. So let's go ahead and implement it. So for that, we are going to implement the SpringFox Swagger 2. So we'll go to our pom.xml file. Here within the dependency section, we will add the dependency. So let me go ahead and add the dependency, and here I'll just add SpringFox boot starter. It's from the group io.springfox and the version is added. And then let me just go ahead and add another dependency for SpringFox Swagger UI, and it's also from the io.springfox and the version is added. Now what I have to do is I have to go to my Spring Boot MongoDB application and I need to enable the Swagger. So I'll just define enable Swagger 2. Okay. Now one more thing I need to do is I need to add the configuration for my Spring end matchers. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is the configuration that we need to add. That is the Spring MVC path match dot matching strategy equals to end path matchers. Now once you do this, we need to add a configuration for SpringFox. So we will create one package for config, and within the config package, we will create one class and we'll define SpringFox config. Okay, and here we will add @configuration and we'll create a docket bean. So let me just create a bean and I'll just define public docket API return new docket, and that is the documentation type dot swagger 2 dot select dot APIs request handler selectors dot any. So any request handler will be added and we'll also add the paths. Any path selectors will be added. Okay, and dot build. So you can see that it's a very simple code. Okay, so you can see that what we are doing is all the APIs which are there in our application will be exposed in our documentation and we can go through from there. So you can see it's simple, added. Now let's start our application and let's see that first whatever the API that we created in our controller, that is person controller post mapping to save the person, is working or not. So we will just start our application. So you can see that my application is started and my application is also connected to my MongoDB database. Now what we can do is we can go to a browser and we'll go to localhost port 8080 and /swagger-ui. You can see that this is the UI to open your Swagger. So you can see that your application is started, application is working, and you can see your one controller is also added here, that is person controller. So let's go ahead and test this. So you can see that we have one post API that we have added here. Right, this is the post API. So let's go ahead and try it. We'll click on try it out and you can see that this is the type of JSON format it is expecting. So let's give all the information. So in the address I'll give as Bangalore. In the address too also I'll give Bangalore, city as Bangalore, age as 25, first name as Shabir, last name as Daudi, and I'll give the person ID as 12. And the hobbies I'll give as ABC. These are the simple data I am just passing. Okay, now let's execute and you can see that I am getting my response body back, that is 12, that is my person ID. Now if I go to my Studio 3D, my MongoDB, okay, if I refresh, okay, you can see that demo database is created. So this is a demo that we had defined in our Spring Boot application in our configuration, right? You can see that the database is demo. So within the database demo, our collection should be created. So here you can see that the person collection is created, and you can see there is one record inserted. So this is how you can see that the data is getting created. Now let's go ahead and build the other APIs. So we'll go to our Spring Boot application. We'll go to the controller back, person controller, and let's add other APIs. So now let's add a API to find a person based on the given name. So whatever the first name that I'll give, based on that it will search a person and it will return a person. Okay, so that's a simple API that we are going to create now. So what I'll do, I'll just public list of person I need. Okay, because if I will pass Shabbir and if there are multiple Shabbirs, then I'll need all those person. Okay, so that's why I am taking the list of person, and I'll give get person start with, and here I will pass one of the value, and here this is the request param. Okay, so request param I'll take as name, string name, and here what I'll do, I'll just do return person service dot get person with person start with, and here I'll pass the name. Okay, it's simple method that I'm going to create. Now this method is still not available within the person service, so we need to go ahead and create it. So let's go ahead and create a method there. So create a method person start with in person service, and here you can see that the method is created. Now we need to implement this method. So we'll go to the implementation, that is the person service IMPL, and here we will go ahead and implement the method. So let's implement it. So here you can see that this method is very custom. So this method won't be defaultly available within the Mongo repository. So we need to define that method. We need to give the declaration. So after that, the declaration we will be able to use it. So let's go ahead and declare the method. So we'll go to the person repository, and here we'll declare the method. So here we'll define list of person, and what we can do here, find by what we need to find by first name, right? So find by first name and starts with. So we'll give starts with. So what it will do is it will find all the person by first name starting with the given string. So we'll pass string as name. Simple, we just declare the method here, and the implementation is by default by the Mongo repository now. So this is something that we have to call from our service IMPL. So we'll call person repository dot find by first name start with, and then we need to pass the name. You can see that how simple it is to implement your all the different methods. Now let's test this method. So what we'll do, we will just restart our application, and our application is restarted. We'll go to our browser and we'll refresh our page, and you can see that there is now two APIs. One that is person get person start with, and the other one is save. So within the database we have already stored one user, that is Shabbir, right? So let's try to search that. So I'll just pass Shabbir here, and you can see that there is no data because Shabbir was capital. And now you can see that I am getting data, right? So you can see that whenever there is no data, we won't be able to get any data, but if it matches, we will get all the records here. So this way you can see that this particular API is also working completely fine, and the URL is this way: localhost 8080/person ? Name equals to Shabbir, as this is the request parameter. Okay, now let's go ahead and implement another API. So now let's implement the delete API. So here what we will do is we will implement delete. So I'll just define public void delete, and here, okay, sorry, this is not something that we need to define here. I'll just remove from here, and I have to go to my controller, right? So here I have to add. Okay, so this is the delete API, and here I will just mention @delete mapping. Okay, as this is the delete. So a delete method will be called here, and I will just pass the ID. So here I'll define this is the path variable, and this is string ID. Okay, this is simple. You can see that we are just defining the delete, and what we'll do, we will call the person service dot delete. We'll just define the delete method here, and we are going to pass the ID. Okay, simple. Now this delete method is still not available, so what we'll do is we will go ahead and create this method. So let's go ahead and create a method. So you can see that the method is created in the person service. Now we have to go to the implementation and add the implementation for it. So within this service IMPL, there is person service IMPL, we have to implement a method. So let's go ahead and implement. And what we will do using the person service itself, person repository, sorry, we'll do delete by ID. Okay, and we'll pass the ID. And you can see how easy it is to implement the delete as well. So the delete operation is also now implemented. Now let's implement another API. Now within this API, what we will do is we will try to use the query annotation. So using the query annotation, we are trying to get the data now. So what we'll do is we will create an API. So that API will give all the person based on the age. So we will define minimum age and maximum age. So based on that min age and max age, it will give all the result. And we are going to implement this using the @query annotation. So let's go ahead and do that. So we will go to our controller to implement our API. So this is a person controller. So let's go ahead and implement. Okay, so we will define public list of person, because we'll get list of person here. Okay, and we will tell get by person age. Okay, and we will define the get mapping, and we will define /age. So the API would be /person /age, and here we are going to pass the parameters. So let's go ahead and do that. So we will pass request param integer min age and @request param integer max age. Okay, so these are the two fields that I am getting, min age and max age. Based on this, we need to find the data using @query annotation. So let's call our API. So let's call our service. So we'll just do return person service dot get by person age, and we are going to pass min age and max age. Okay, now this method is not still available within the person service, so we need to add this method. So we'll just create a method in the person service, and we need to implement this method. So we'll go ahead and implement this method here. Now you can see that the method is implemented. Now we need to use our repository layer to get our data. So let's go to the person repository and implement the method. So ideally what you can do is you can create a method that is list of person, and you can give the method name that is find by age, and you can pass between. Okay, and here you can pass integer min and integer max. Okay, so this is the default implementation you can give, and you will get the data based on min and max age, but this is using the repository. But we need to see using the query annotation, right? So let's go ahead and do using the query annotation. So I'll just keep it here this way so you can go ahead and use this, but let's go ahead and do with query annotation. So here let me just create a method that is list of person, return type, and I'll just define name find person by age between. Okay, you can see that I've just given the different name here, and I'm going to pass integer min and integer max. And now here I will use the query annotation. So you can see that this query is from org springframework.data.mongodb. Okay, and within the query annotation we need to pass the value. So what value it is, we need to pass the value using the curly braces. We need to do the based on the age. Okay, so we'll use age here as the property, and we'll do colon, and then we need to use again braces $GT with $0. Okay, that means the age should be greater than the first parameter, that is the minimum value that we have passed, and $less than first parameter. Okay, and this everything would be within the quotes here. So you can see that this is a simple query that I have defined, and if you go here you can see that you will get all the properties as well here. If I just remove this, you can see all these methods are there, that is less than, greater than, and equal operator, greater than equal to, in, less than equal to, not equal to, okay, not, nor, all these particular operations are there. You can use any of the operations. So here I'm just using greater than. So I'm just defining that I need a query, that is, and the value should be, I need to do the filtration, that is, I need to data based on the age. So age is the property within the person, right? Age is a property within the person. So with this age, I need the data that is greater than the first parameter. Question mark 0 is the first parameter. Okay. So greater than the first parameter and less than the second parameter, that is the question mark 1. Okay. This is equal to the data we are getting here. And now what we will do is we will call this method. So let's go ahead and go to the service impl and we will call this method. Now we will call return person repository dot find person by age between, and here we will pass min age and max age. Cool, right? You can see that how simple it was. So let's go ahead and rerun the application and test this. By that time, let's go ahead and see the database, that what was the age that we added, that was 25. Okay, and my application is started. Let's go to the browser, let's refresh the page, and you can see that we should get the another API, that is, this is first API, right? Get person start with, this is the one, get by person age. You can see that delete also is coming here, but we need to use this. So let's use this and let's test this out. So I'll just try it out, and here I need to give the min and max. So max age I'll give as 26 and the min age I'll give as 15. Okay, and I will execute, and you can see that I am getting the data here. Cool, right? You can see that how easy it is. If I just change the values, right, I will just add 24 here, and if I execute, you can see that you won't be getting any data. Now one more thing we can do here is, suppose when you're getting the data, what you need is, you don't need any particular field. You just need person ID, first name, last name, age, and all those only. Okay, you don't need particularly address here. So that also you can define within your @query parameters. So let's go ahead and do that. What you can do is, you can go here within the @query annotation to the person repository, right? So within this query annotation, you can define fields. Okay, when within this fields you can define which fields you need. Okay, so suppose what I'm defining is the field that is addresses. So you make sure that the spelling is correct. So I'll just copy from here, Control C, and I'll go to the repository and I'll define addresses, and that is 0. 0 means I don't need, 1 means I need. Whatever you want you can define. So the only thing I defined is here that I don't need addresses field. That means rest of the fields I'll get. Okay, so let's go ahead and rerun the application. So if I rerun this, my application is started, and if I go to my browser, you can see that earlier for the same API I was getting the addresses. Okay, now if I execute again, you can see that I won't get the addresses. I will only get my person details. Cool, right? So this way you can filter out the data as well, like which particular fields you need, which particular fields you don't need, you can exclude them as well. Okay, now let's implement another API where we will implement a generic search. So we'll create a search API and we'll pass all the different fields. If the fields are available, then we will be able to search, otherwise we won't be able to search. So that's a search API that we are going to build. So let's go ahead to our SpringBoot, that is IntelliJ IDEA, and let's go to the person controller and let's create one more API. Now within the search API, what we are trying to do is we will implement a pagination as well. So we will define a pagination, and based on the page number and the page length, we will get the data, and we will also do quite differently, right? Rather than using the repository, we are going to now use the MongoTemplate. So you will get the understanding of both how to work with MongoTemplate as well and how to work with the repository as well. Till now we saw that we were working with the Mongo repository. Now we are going to implement the pagination with search using the MongoTemplate. MongoTemplate is also a part of the SpringBoot Mongo dependency. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's implement public method, that is the API, and we will use the pagination. So here we'll use page, and this pages will be of type person, and this is the search API. Okay, search person, and we will just annotate with get mapping, and we'll just define /search. So /person/search is our API. Now let's add the request params. So we will be adding different request params, and whatever the request params would be available, based on that we will add the search. So we'll just define request param string name. Okay, but what I will do is I will make sure that this request params are not mandatory. So if I don't provide request params, I need to get all the records. But if I provide any filtration, I need to get the records based on that. Okay, so I'll just make sure that this required is false, and then I'll just add again request param. I'll just make sure that the required is false, and I'll just mention integer min age. The same way I'll just do for the request param. Required is false, integer max age. Okay, again request param, required is false, string city. So you can see that these are all the fields available in our person entity, right? So this all based on all those fields we are trying to implement a search. And then after this, let's add the pagination also. So what I'll do, I will just do request param default value equals to 0, integer page @request mapping default value equals to 5, and integer size, the size of the page. Okay, now let's create the pageable object. Pageable equals to page request dot off, and here you can see that within this we need to pass the page and the size. So here I'll just pass the page and the size, and here after this I'll just do return person service dot search, and here I'll pass all the fields, that is name, min age, max age, city, and the pageable object. So you can see that it's simple, right? We just define the search method here with all these particular fields. So let's go ahead and create this method in our service. Okay, so you can see that the method is created within the person service, and now we need to implement this. So let's go ahead and implement this method. We'll implement this. Cool. Now, as earlier I told you that we are going to implement this using the Mongo template, right? So we need to have the object of a Mongo template. So let's define the object. So I'll define in the starting that this is a Mongo template. Okay. And I'll just auto wire that object. Simple. Okay. We have not done anything yet. Now let's go ahead and implement this search method. So what we will do is, ideally, whatever the fields are non-empty, okay, means whatever the values are there, then only we will try to add the search. Otherwise we will just ignore it. So we are going to create a criteria, and we are going to add all those particular things in our criteria, and based on that criteria we are going to fetch the results. So let's do that. So here let's define a query object, and make sure that that query is from the core query. Okay, you can see that this is from the spring framework.data.mongodb.core.query, not from the repository. Okay, so the query is there. Query equals to new query dot with pageable. Okay, so this query will be created using the pageable that we have defined. Now we need to define the list of criteria. So we'll just define the list of criteria here equals to new array list. Now we need to define all these criteria now. So the first thing is, we'll work with the name. So if name is not null and not blank, then we need to add that particular thing in the criteria. So it's simple. If name is not equal to null and name is empty, that means not empty, right? It's not empty, then we need to add in the criteria. So we'll just add in the criteria, that is criteria dot add, and we will just define criteria dot where. Okay, and here I'll just define the key is first name, because if we go to the person, right, the key is first name, so this is the key that we need to provide. Okay, dot regex. Okay, and here we are going to pass name. Okay, the regex should be whatever the value that the name is passed, that should be, and it should be in case sensitive. Okay, simple. You can see that we just added one criteria. So whenever the name is not null and the name is not blank, at that time we are adding the criteria that we need all the data where its first name should match with the name that we have provided, and it should be in case sensitive. Okay, now let's work with the min and max age. So let's go here and work that if min age not equals to null and max age not equals to null, then we need to work with this. Okay, so here again we will add the criteria dot add criteria dot where, and this field, this key we need to pass, that is the age, because we are working with the age. If we go again with the person, min and max age that we are working, that is with the key age. Okay, so we are using the age key here. Dot greater than. Okay, so GTE, it should be greater than equals to the min age and less than LTE and less than equal to the max age. So you can see that we added the another criteria that when the min age and max age are not null, then add the criteria where age should be greater than equal to minimum age and less than equal to maximum age. Now let's work with the city. So if city is not equals to null and not of city dot is empty, right, then criteria dot add criteria dot where. Now you can see that we have to pass a key, but city, right, city is inside where? City is inside person, but inside person's addresses, right? So person addresses dot city. Okay, so inside the addresses there is a city, right? So that should be is means equals to city that we are passing. Simple, right? You can see that we added three criterias based on the conditions, and we use multiple things. We use regex is equal to and greater than less than equal to. So this way, whatever you need, you can add the conditions within the criteria and you can create the criteria object. Cool, right? Now once this criteria is done, okay, we need to add or we need to attach this criteria to our query. So let's do that. If criteria dot is empty, okay, not empty, okay, when the criteria is not empty, then we need to add. So we will just add query dot add criteria, and here we'll just new criteria dot and operator. What we are doing is we are adding all this criteria using the and operator. Okay, and we are doing this criteria dot to array new criteria of 0. You can see that it's simple. What we are doing is we created the list of criteria here. We added all the criteria in a list, like whenever the values are not null, we are adding into the criteria. At the end, if criteria is not empty, like anywhere the criteria is added, what we are doing is at the end we are attaching that criteria to our query. Okay, and within this add criteria there is a new criteria and operator, and this and operator takes the variable argument as an array. So we are converting this our list of criteria to the array of criteria. That's it, very simple. Okay, nothing complex here. It's converting from the list to array. Now once this is done, now we are going to use the Mongo template to fetch the data in the pagination format. So here what we'll do, we will define page of person people equals to page of person people equals to pageable execution utils. Okay, dot get page. Now here within the get page you can see that what you have to pass, you have to pass the content, you have to pass the pageable, and then you need to find the supplier as well, like what is the total value for that particular list. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So here we'll define MongoTemplate dot find, and here I'll pass the query. And what is the entity class? That is person dot class, right? So we'll define person dot class. Then we're going to pass pageable. Then we need to pass the supplier for the total list. So here we'll pass MongoTemplate dot count. We'll pass the query dot skip 0 dot limit 0 comma person dot class. So you can see that we just added the entire page execution detail, and then at the end we need to pass the people back. So let's go it again. So here you can see that we had to pass the 3 fields, that is the entire list itself. So from the first, right, from the MongoTemplate.find, from here we are going to get the entire list. So MongoTemplate.find, we pass the query and we need person.class. So here we will get the entire list of person, and then we pass the pageable, like what type of data we need, and then we pass the supplier, that is to get the count. So here we pass MongoTemplate.count and we got the entire count based on the query. So once this is done, the implementation is done. Now you can see that it's very simple implementation, but looks complex. But instead of using the repository, we use the MongoTemplate here. So let's go ahead and rerun our application. You can see that the application is started. Let's go to a browser and let's refresh the page. And you can see that this is the search implemented here, and you can see that these are all the different parameters. So let's try it out. So if we directly execute, we should be able to get all the records, right? You can see that we are getting the records, and there is a pageable as well. So it will have all the list of data, different data available. So when you have a lot of data here, you will be able to search it easily. But here if I pass any other details, right, like suppose city is ABC, okay, and if I try to execute, you can see that you won't be getting any data, right? There is no data available. So you can see that our search is working completely fine. You can see that we implemented a search using all the different parameters. If you don't pass any details, you will get all the records. But if you want to filter out the content, you can add the filters here using the request parameters, and you will get the data accordingly. Now let's go one step further. Now let's try to see the aggregation, how aggregation works in MongoDB, and how we can implement aggregation and we can fetch data. So let's try to implement an API, in which API we will get the oldest person living in a particular city. As you can see that we are adding all the persons, right? So what we'll do is a person will have an address, and that address will have a city. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to group all those data based on the city. We are going to sort those data, and we are going to find a person who is oldest in a particular city, and we are going to bring all the data back. So suppose if I have 10 cities, I will send that list of 10 cities and which particular person is the oldest in that city. So that's the thing that we are going to implement here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I will go to my IntelliJ IDEA and let's go to the controller and let's implement this. So let's create a new API here. I'll just define public list of document, and you can see that we are going to use document from the org.pson because MongoDB stores the data in the binary JSON format. Okay, so we are going to use that, and we are just define get oldest person. Okay, and this is the list here, and this is going to be get mapping, and the API would be slash oldest person. Okay, so slash person slash oldest person is going to be the API, and here I'll just try to do return person service dot get oldest person by city. Okay, so you can see that it's very simple here. Get oldest, P should be capital. Okay, so you can see that I'm just implementing a simple API here where the oldest person in the city we are going to return back. So let's implement this method in the service layer. So let's create a method here, and we need to implement this method. So let's go to the implementation class and implement this method. And here as well we are going to use the MongoTemplate and we are going to use the aggregation functions. Okay, how the aggregation would work in the MongoDB. So let's see that. So now here you can see that what I need is I need the oldest person by city. Now what I want is from here now I need to access the cities. Now cities are inside the addresses and addresses are part of the cities. So what I need to do is I need to flatten out that addresses. Okay, so rather than having the list of addresses inside my person, what I need is I need to flatten out that so I can directly access the addresses. So it is called an unwind operation. So I'm going to do an unwind operation on the addresses. So directly I can access addresses from the person itself. Then what I'm going to do is after that I am going to sort all the data based on the age. Once the sorting is done, I will group all the data based on the city. So once that is done, I will get the oldest person by city. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do here. So let's go ahead and do all those operations. So we'll do unwind operation, then we'll do sort operation, and then we'll do group operation. So we will define all these operations and we will pass all these operations in our aggregations, and we are trying to get the data. So let's implement this. So first we'll define unwind operation. Okay, unwind operation equals to aggregation dot unwind. Okay, now where you need to do the unwind operation, I want to do the unwind operation on addresses because we have a list of addresses that I need to unwind, so it's directly accessible. So if I go to the person, this is the addresses, so I'll just take this, go to the person service IMPL, and I'll pass addresses. Then I need to do the sorting operation. So let's define that. So I'll just define sort operation. Sort operation equals to aggregation dot sort. I'll define sort dot direction is in descending order, and then on what I want to do the sorting, I want to do the sorting on age. Okay, so this is what something I defined. Now I need to do the group operation. So I'll just define group operation equals to aggregation dot group, and here I need to group based on city. City is inside addresses, right? So I need to take the addresses dot city. Okay, then what I need to do is once I do that, I need to take the first out of it because we have already done the sorting in the reverse order. So once we have done the sorting in the reverse order, I need to just take the first root. So I'll just define first, and I need to get the document root. I'll define aggregation dot root and how I want to store it. So I'll define as, I want to define as the oldest person. So you can see that this is something that I have added as a group. I want to group based on the addresses.cd, and once the group is done, I need to get the document root. Okay, and then I am saving everything in the oldest person. That's something that I have defined in the group operation. Now let's do the aggregation. So let's define aggregation equals to aggregation dot new aggregation, and here you can see that this will take the varargs of the operations. So we can pass all the operations that we need to perform. So I need to first perform unwind operation, then sort operation, then group operation. Okay, simple thing. Now I need to get those data. So I need to get list of as a document, that is a person, equals to, I need to do MongoTemplate dot aggregate. I need to pass the aggregation, then I need to pass the input type. Input type is person dot class, and what is the output I need in the document. So that is document dot class. Okay, then dot get mapped results. So once that is done, I can pass on the person back. So you can see that it is simple. Okay, let's try to go through again. So what we did is we want to get the oldest person. So the oldest person by the city. The access to the city we can only get by the addresses. So first we need to flatten the operation. So that means we flatten out the addresses. That means the unwrap operation we did. After that, we need to sort the data. So we sorted the data based on the age. Once that is done, we group the data based on the city, and we took the first document out of it, and we need to do the aggregation. So these are the three operations that we are going to do: unwrap operation, sort operation, group operation. We pass all the operations in the aggregation, and that aggregation we passed on to our Mongo template to get the document back. Simple as it is. Okay, you can see that everything is straightforward. Unwind, sort, group, we pass everything to the aggregation. That aggregation we pass to a Mongo template to get the data back. Okay, now let's run the application and see. You can see that the application started. Let's go here to the browser. Let's refresh the page, and here you can see that we got the data, that is the get oldest person. Okay, and let's try it out and let's execute. So here you can see that in the Bangalore, okay, in the city Bangalore, we are getting the oldest person as Shabir because we have only added one record. Okay, and within that one record, within that city, we have only one person, that is the oldest one. So this way the aggregation will happen, and this way you will get the data back. If you have multiple records, you will get the data better. So if you want to try adding multiple records and you will get the result back. Let's take one more example because this is still not enough to understand completely and to understand how the aggregation and everything work. So let's take one more example. Let's create one more API in which we will try to do, or we will try to get the population of the cities. So if we have multiple cities available, right? So we'll try to get the population of it, how much population we have for a particular city. So that's the aggregation way that we are going to do. So let's go ahead and implement it. We'll go to our IntelliJ IDEA. Let's go to our controller, that is the person controller. Okay, and let's implement a new API. So we will implement public list of document get population by city, and we will do get mapping here, and we will define population by city. Okay, and we are going to call this service layer from here. So we are going to call person service dot get population by city. Cool, right? You can see that a simple method is declared here. Let's go ahead and declare the same method in our service layer. So create a method get population by city in person service, and let's undo it because we forgot to add the return statement, right? So let's go ahead and add the return statement. Okay, and then let's add the method here, create method, and here the list of document is there. Now let's go ahead and implement this. We'll go to the implementation and let's implement the method. Okay, now here also we are going to do the same thing. We have to do the aggregation operations. So let's implement this. Okay, so here we are going to do the same thing. We are going to do the unwind operation. That means we have to work with the city. So we are going to do the unwind operation. Once we unwind the operation, we are going to do the grouping. So we will group by city, and then we are going to sort it. Okay, so the maximum population will come first. So that's the plan. So let's do all the operation. So we'll do unwind operation here equals to aggregation dot unwind, and we need to unwind based on the addresses. So let me just copy addresses from here, right? So we are going to do unwind operation, and then we are going to do the grouping operation. So we are going to group operation equals to aggregation dot group based on what? Group based on city. So that would be addresses dot city. And then once that is done, we need to count those and we need to store those. Okay, so we will store in the population count. Cool, right? You can see that we aggregated it, we grouped it, and we added the count, and we stored all the count in the pop count as a variable. And then we need to do the sorting operation. So let's do sorting. So we will do sort operation equals to aggregation dot sort, and we need sort direction DESC, and we need to do sorting based on what? Based on the variable that we have declared here. So we will define that based on this we need to do the sorting. Okay, now we need to define the aggregation. Now with this aggregation we are going to add one more thing, that is the projection. Like what data we need back. We don't need all the data back, right? I don't need entire object, I just need a particular fields out of it, right? So that's what we are going to implement using the projection here. So let's do that. So we are going to define the projection operation. Okay, equals to aggregation dot project dot and expression. Okay, we are going to add all the expressions here. So what I'm trying to do here is whatever my city is there, right, that city should come as ID. The pop count which I have, right, that pop count should come as count, and actual ID whatever is defined, right, that should not come. Okay, my custom ID should come and my population count as count should come. So that's the simple thing that I'm going to add in the projection. Rest all the details I don't want it. Okay, so that's what we are defining here. In the add expression, what I'm doing is whatever the ID is there, okay, as I need the city dot and expression, whatever the pop count is there, that I need as count dot and expression. Sorry, what I need, this is and expression, and I need and exclude, right? This is not array, sorry, this should be only as, and this is exclude. So what I need to exclude is the underscore ID. Okay, so this is a simple projection that I have defined. Now we have to use this projection in our aggregation as well. So let's do that. Aggregation equals to aggregation dot new aggregation. So what I need to do here is first unwind operation, then group operation, then sort operation, then projection operation. Simple. Okay, so I just define all the operations which I need in the sequence. Then after that I need to pass this aggregation in our Mongo template to get the data. So I need list of document as documents equals to Mongo template dot aggregate. I need to pass the aggregation, then my input class, that is person dot class, and my output class, that is the document dot class, and dot get mapped results. This is something that I want in back, and return documents. Okay, you can see that how simple it is, right? So we did unwind operation, then group operation, then sort operation, then we did the projection as well, that because we only need few of the details, we pass everything in our aggregation, and then we pass everything in our Mongo template. So you can see that the entire method is completed now. Let's run the application again and let's see how it is working. So you can see that my application started now. Let's go to the browser and let's refresh the page, and my new get population by city API is here. Let's try it out. Okay, and you can see that I am getting one city, that is Bangalore. Okay, and the population count is 1. So let's try to add one more person and say check it out. Okay, so what I'll do, I will try to add Ahmedabad. Okay, age is 23, first name is Vishruth, the last name is Majumdar, and the person ID is 23. Okay, and the city is Ahmedabad. So let's try to execute this. You can see that the data is saved here, and now if I go ahead and try to get the population by city, and if I execute it, you can see that I'm getting the population, that the Bangalore is 1, Ahmedabad is 1. Okay, and if I try to get the oldest person here, okay, that should also get me the same results, that in the Bangalore this is the oldest person, okay, and in the Ahmedabad this is the oldest person. So you can see that how easy it is to implement the aggregation as well in the MongoDB using the Spring Boot. So I hope you are enjoying this tutorial, but we are still not over. Okay, we still need to understand one more thing. Let's try to understand how the images are stored, right? So let's try to create the API and try to store the images. So let's create a new controller and we will try to store images there. So what we will do here, now I will create one collection. Okay, so let's create a new collection and I will say this is a photo. Okay, simple. Okay, here I will annotate with data to get all the boilerplate code, and then I will add as a document. Now this is something that will create the collection. So we need to define collection equals to photo. Okay, and we'll define JSON include, and I will just add include non-null. Okay, now let's define the properties here. So I'll define private string ID, private string title, and private binary photo. Okay, and this my ID is my unique key, right? So I'll just define as the ID. So you can see that we just created the collection here as the entity here, and now we need to work with this. So for this, let's create the repository. So here we'll go and create the repository layer. So let's define the class and define photo repository, and this is going to be the interface, and this is going to implement, and this is going to extend Mongo repository, and this is of type photo and type string. Okay, and we will define this as a repository. So you can see that the repository is also created. Now let's create the service layer. So I'll just define the new services here. Photo service, this is going to be the interface, and we are going to create one more service, that is photo service IMPL. This is going to be the class, and that is going to be implementing photo service. Cool, right? And this is going to be my service layer. Super cool. Now let's go ahead and create the controller layer. You can see that how easy it is to create everything. So let's go ahead and create the controller, and we'll define photo controller. Okay, and this is going to be my REST controller, and we'll do request mapping as well. That this is going to be my /photo. Okay, you can see that the controller is created, the service layers are created, and the repositories are also created. Now in this controller we need the access to the service layer, so let's go ahead and do that. So we'll just define private photo service, and we will auto wire it. Okay, and here let's create the API to add the photo and retrieve the photo. First let's try to add the photo. So let's create the API here, public string add photo. Okay, and this is going to be the post mapping, and this is going to be my request param, and this request param I'll name as the image. Okay, and what it's going to be, multi-part file, and as the image name. Okay, you can see that it's very simple thing. Now within the Spring Boot we need to define the configuration as well when we are working with the multi-part file, like what's the size and everything that we can define, or the application can able to upload or manage it. So let's define all those configurations. So I'll go to the application.properties here, and I'll define the configuration. Simple, that Spring Servlet multi-part max file size is 256 MB. The request can be of 256 MB, and we are enabling the multi-part in our request. So that's the configuration that we need to add. Now let's go back to our controller and let's handle it. So what we have to do here is we are taking the data here as a multi-part file in the name of an image, so that we have to store. So what I'll do, I'll just define string ID equals to photo service dot add photo, and I'm going to pass the image here. Okay, and I'm going to return ID alongside image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the name as well. So I'm going to pass image dot get original file name as well, like what the file name was uploaded. Okay, So that's the simple thing that I'm going to do. Now this add photo we need to implement. We need to add in our service layer. So let's go ahead and add in our service layer. So this is how we have added in the service layer, and there is one implementation for this photo service. So let's go ahead and implement in the photo service IMPL. Okay, we have implemented. Now here in the photo service IMPL, we need the object of the repository. So let's go ahead and create this. So private photo repository, and we need to auto wire it. Okay, cool. Now here let's create the object of a photo. So I'll create a photo equals to new photo, and we will define everything. Photo dot, sorry, we are going to do the title here, right? So set title would be original file name, and photo dot set photo equals to image dot get bytes, and add exception in method signature. Okay, yes. Now what I need to do is I need to create the new binary. So for this I'll just create new binary. And here I need to define the type. So the type is bson binary type dot binary. And here once the photo is created, what I need to do is I need to do photo repository dot save photo dot get id. Okay, you can see that it's simple thing. We just implemented the entire add photo implementation. So whatever the photo is there, it's going to be stored in the binary format in our MongoDB. So for this, now let's create the API to download that photo as well based on the ID that we provide. So let's go to the photo controller again, and let's implement a API method here. Now here add photo, we need to add the exception. Okay, so we are not handling the exception for now. That's easy to handle, but I'm just showing you what are the things that we can do in the MongoDB for the binaries as well. So here let's implement the method public response entity, and this response entity is of type resource. Okay, download photo @get mapping. Okay, we are going to pass the ID. Based on the ID, we are going to get the data from the database MongoDB, and we are going to download this image. So /id. Okay, and this is going to be your path variable string ID. Now let's create the resource object equals to new byte array resource, and then photo. Okay, so before this we need to use the photo here, right? So let's take the photo object here. Photo equals to photo service dot get photo, right, based on the ID provided. So now let's implement this get photo method. We'll go to the service layer and implement this method. We'll go to the implementation and implement this method. Okay, now based on this ID, what we'll do, photo service photo repository dot find by ID, and we are going to pass the ID dot get. Okay, because this will be the optional, so we are using the get to get that. Once that is done, we will go to our photo controller again. We will get the photo here, and here we are going to pass the photo dot get data. Okay, so your resource is ready now. Now we need to make sure that it is downloadable. So we'll define return response entity dot ok dot header http headers dot content disposition attachment. What's the type of attachment, right? And here we'll give the file name equals to plus photo dot get title plus / again, and then this dot content type media type dot application octet stream. Okay, dot body, and in the body we need to pass the resource. That's it. You can see that how easy it is, right? We just get the photo here, we created the resource object, and in the response entity we pass the details here. We pass how the header should be and how the content type should be. Now let's restart our application. You can see that the application is restarted now. Let's go to the browser, let's refresh the page, and now you can see that we have the photo controller as well, and within the photo controller we have two APIs, that is the post photo and get photo. But now I will show you using the Postman. So let me just open the Postman here, and the API would be http localhost 8080/photo, and it would be post mapping, right? So we will do here http localhost 8080/photo. It would be post mapping. You will go to the parameters. Okay, we'll go to the body, and it should be form data, and the key should be image because you are taking the request parameter as the image. So make sure that the key is image. You type it out, and here you will get the option to, and here you select the file type rather than the text. Okay, and then you will get the select option. So select the file here. I'm just selecting any file, and I'm just doing the send. And here you can see that the send operation happened here. Okay, and the data is stored. We got the ID as well. So if I go ahead in the Studio 3T, if I refresh my demo here, let me just refresh all, and you can see that the photo is added here, and you can see that the data is added in the binary format in the photo as well. Okay, so if I go to the Postman again, if I do /photo/ID, and if I change it to get, then I should get my photo back. Okay, now you can see that I'm not able to get it here, but if I do the same thing here in the UI, if I go to photo ID, if I try it out, if I give my ID here and execute, you can see that I'll get a link to download. So once I click on this, I'll be able to download my file. Okay, so you can see that how easy it is to implement anything in the MongoDB. You can see that how easy it was to implement the file handling as well. So this is how easy it is to work with Spring Boot and MongoDB. So make sure that you explore all the things. We covered a lot of things as well, like how to completely do the CRUD operations, how to handle the aggregations as well, how to work with the MongoTemplate, how to work with the repository layer as well, and how to handle and how to work with the binary files as well. So I will also make sure that this entire project is available in the Git repository, and I will add the link as well in the description below, so you can easily check it out. If you have any doubts regarding any of the things that we have covered, then do let me know in the comment section below. I will try to resolve these queries as soon as possible. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for the upcoming videos. Also click on the join button to join my channel and support me. And you can also click on the thanks button to donate as well. So that's been it in this video. I will see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye bye.